See, talking about digitization, when you say the fundamental meaning of digitize, it is basically moving from analog to digital. So if you look at any of the manufacturing industries, many of the measurements, many of the tools all will have an analog measurement tool to capture data. So the main digitization in the manufacturing context is changing that from the analog mode to digital. So once you make the transformation digital, there is a huge opportunity that has in terms of the data is once it forms on digital, the opportunities really opens up. The possibilities really opens up, and there you have a lot of combinations of analysis you can run on top of the data, and where you can really make good decisions out of that. The why the hype of IoT in manufacturing is so high is because if you really look at the potential of the digitization that can bring to manufacturing, the value which can be derived out of is actually multifold, because each and every transaction, each and every activities in a manufacturing plant or any of the machines is being recorded on almost on a continuous basis, which can be used to monitor it, and we can find out the patterns, analyze data, and throw and give a lot of output out of it. It can be used for preventive maintenance, it can be used for supply chain efficiency, it can help you in automation of many other activity. So you just think about it, the possibilities are there. So that's the first question in talking about digitization. So coming to the second question, sorry, I just
how digitization is linked to IIoT or Industry 4?
Okay, so I think I've covered to some extent of that one already. In terms of how it is linked, digitization is good. Digitization is affecting all industries, and Industry 4.0 is a new term which is coming out from the industrial IoT, and there are a lot of new terms which you already mentioned. So basically, the fundamental thing is that there's a transformation that is happening across industries with the advent of digital technologies. And if you really closely analyze is what has driven the transformation in the last 4 to 5 years is basically a synergy of multiple technology development that has happened in the last 4-5 years, because it has been happening for decades, be it the IoT, be it the cloud, be it the mobility, be it the connectivity element. See, all of them has contributed to this transformation. But what is actually driving the transformation is the combination or the synergy that has been created by these technology elements to add value to it. So when these multiple technology elements start working together, the possibilities become much more useful, live, and real. So what all which we used to see at the early stage in our career, which we're talking about the science fiction movies and all, is now becoming a reality in front of our eyes, is made because of this combination of the technology is really happening. So the same thing is happening for manufacturing also, where things are all happening on a systematic manner, but on a machine redundant process. The scale is something which is always limited there, or the way in which you can expand, or the possibilities in which you need to really make your manufacturing flexible is becoming a challenge in the earlier stage. The flexible manufacturing is really coming up, and there's where the digitization and all other digital technologies are really going to help you to make your manufacturing unit more agile and cater to the new requirement that is coming on a daily basis.
Thank you. The second question is, while new manufacturing units that will be set up have the opportunity to digitize their manufacturing right from scratch, how do you see existing manufacturing units cope up with this digitization process without disrupting their production?
Okay, that's a big challenge in the manufacturing trade. So if you go to any manufacturing company, they will be very shocked to even stop the production for a couple of seconds, talking not about even hours or days and all. So any kind of automation or any innovation that need to be done has to work parallelly. So that's a major challenge. But as you rightly said, the new company which is coming up or a new manufacturing plant, they have all the luxury to use new technologies, new things. But somebody has already invested on a lot of new on the old technologies, don't want to completely change over it, and there's something which has been already legacy sitting there. So now how do we do it? So it is something which I believe is that has to be taken by step process. It can't be done in one go. Okay, from next day onwards your manufacturing unit will be digitized completely. You can take one unit, one portion or one segment or one module of the thing and see what value addition you can do on the current thing by removing some of the analog to digital and see how that is really working and see the result. And once you see the result and see making sense to implement or make it wide, you can have the option to move it to the next module and next application or next element and then expand it. So it's a step-by-step process. There is no right answer to it. It all varies from manufacturing company. The situation depends on it. There is an option to shut down the plant for some time, or to keep some of the activities depending on the cycle of production, and all these factors will come in up at that stage. But the key factor is that I personally believe that has to be done on a module base. It has to be taken up on a step-by-step process, and it has to be a continuous process. And the king said we don't have the luxury of time to wait, because if you look at all the competition across the world is already changing it, and you cannot say that okay, I can't change here. So the change is required, but you can't do it all in one go. But how fast you can do it, implement internally, will be a key, decide how your success will be in the coming future.
Thank you. Will the digitization process be in favor of large manufacturing corporates and make SMEs, who are the lifeline in any economy, uncompetitive and irrelevant?
I don't so. Actually, I think the other ways, because for SMEs the advantage is they don't have legacy infrastructure with them. They are more flexible and they are more agile to make changes. So when you're large corporation, of course they will have a large scale which they will have, which is a great advantage for in their hand. But in terms of from a digitization perspective or in terms of transformation perspective, it works in favor of a small industries to transform faster than a large enterprise to transform faster. So that I personally believe will favor a small and manufacturing industry compared to a large manufacturing industry, because of the agility they have in the inbuilt in the system. So in long run, we all know that it is not mass production, it is mass I think there's some slides which talked about earlier also, in terms of mass customization is important. So everybody the era of mass production has moved out. So people want to have very customized products which they have, and it has to be produced for a very few set, and within couple of months that product will be irrelevant in the market. So you can't invest for same product for a long time. So you have to have the agility, you have a flexible manufacturing system which is available to change it. So from that perspective, I think digitization to a great extent will help a small manufacturing company than a large enterprise, manufacturing enterprise.
The digitization process will need a different skill and knowledge on both the OT side and the IT side. Do we have enough skilled resources available? And if not, how do you see the skill being built?
Okay, I think it's a very important question which we are facing currently in the challenge with respect to in IoT industry. As you rightly said, IoT is an industry where information technology and operation technology need to work together. Unfortunately, these two are two different islands. They work completely different, and so somebody who have an IT skills doesn't know how a manufacturing work, or somebody who is in into manufacturing really does not the scale in which the IT can really do it. So these are two different industries which is working parallelly, but when the IoT is one thing which is actually bringing them together. So currently, if you ask skill sets, there's a big challenge, because very few skill sets are available in the market who knows the both side of the same. But I think eventually we are moving forward. I think that skill set are slowly getting built up. You see a lot of startup companies coming in the IoT side, and they are learning it hard. In terms of when they start implementing, they have to learn manufacturing, they have to understand. So IT skill is, I'll say, more available than the manufacturing skills. And once you reach the domain to the IT people, and you quickly take them to the plant and see how it functions, then I think they'll be able to really scale up. Similarly, the OT can take the help of IT team to develop new products and solution. The skill set is a major challenge, but I think eventually there are a lot of small companies which is coming to work on that space, and that's more kind of jobs are getting created in that side. And I hope that some of the universities and all start creating courses which actually cover both IT and OT in the same thing, so that the fresh engineers who comes out of it will have a more knowledge about what they really want to work on a real-time perspective. So now it is everything done on on-job training. It's taking time, but if you want to reduce the time taken for those things, skill set enablement is a key element. I hope government, industry, and all come together and create a ecosystem where the skill sets can be groomed and trained to create new IoT solutions for the next future.
Arising out of this, I have a question.
Okay.
Essentially, in any organization, if one has to go through this digitization process and IoT process, then there are three levels of people are probably involved. One is the CEO level people. Then the next is the middle level, who's really involved in the supervising and in the production process and all. And one is the lower level people who are more supervisor below.
Correct.
And young people. Now, we have CEOs probably, who are wanting to implement. We have the youngest generation of people who are really all mobile savvy, and they would like latest technology to be in, but they have no experience. And we have the middle level who carry the maximum amount of experience in the domain that they are in. But then they are not so much, acceptable to change.
Correct.
So how does one, tackle this? Because you have to tackle these three levels if you really have to do the digitization.
I think that's a very practical solution problem which is happening in the industry right now. As you rightly said, the solution for it should be top down, because CEOs and this board really understand the value which can be brought into it. And when the CEO's vision is very clear and they start seeing this happening with their peers and their competitors, then it is not a question of just a passion, it's a question of survival. And when it comes to this question of survival, the transformation should happen, and that transformation should happen right from the top. So when the CEO is fully committed to the same process of having that digital transformation implemented in an organization, I think there will be obstacles, but I think he has to find a way towards that. And there are many companies doing that in a different way. For example, I have seen many organizations having a digital transformation officer, which is a separate department that has been formed, which work very closely with the CEOs or the chairman, and it is which given a lot of authority to work on, and they drive the change. So they call it change agent, or it could be driven by the strategic of the office. It could be the strategy officer, or a digital officer, or the transformation officer. I think it's a time has evolved to have that as a streamline of the business for every enterprises, and because the current structure will continue to produce the same kind of systems and processes, and we would need somebody to come and shake it up. And for that, you would need an external person with some digital understanding and digital who has really seen digital transformation happening to come in, sit with the CEO team, work with the other senior leaders in the team and see how it can be implemented in the organization. Because digital transformation is no more a question of whether I want to do it. It's a question of whether if you're not doing it, if you are out of the business. So I always see digital transformation as a double-edged sword. If you really want to use the sword to cut the competitor, you take the advantage and do it. And if you don't do it yourself, you yourself will get cut by that. So I think this is again the answer to that is that it should be top-down approach in which the CEO should drive this discussion forward.
What are your estimates of total spending on digitization process that the industry will incur? Or in other words, what is the market arising out of it in India?
Okay, so I think it's very difficult to really put a number from the digitization number, because the way you define digitization vary, and again depends on what value and which customer segments you're looking. For example, we recently did a project to find out what's the market of IoT. So we're looking at what is the market of IoT. We need to from what angle we should look at. We should look at from the service provider angle, we should look from the devices angle, from the platform angle, and there are different stakeholders in the entire industry, and everybody defined their own way of looking at it. So Frost & Sullivan's estimation is that the total global IoT spending is currently around 600 million USD, which will reach around 1.8 trillion in 2020. That's a huge growth which we see in the next 3 to 4 years. which we are talking about the IoT spending. But if you really look at the value that IoT bring to that, is actually, we have done a separate study to find out the value. It comes to 7.2 trillion, because the value of an IoT offering is really changing drastically. Because earlier it was more of an endpoint monitoring. Now it is just not endpoint, it is more of a transformation engine where it really help you to not only to monitor the things, but also to build intelligence on top of it and deliver value. And future, it will change the business model in terms of how we are offering services. So the value an IoT can bring to an industry, or any industry for that matter, is really incredible. And for that, I think everybody is starting working towards to put a number on any particular, depend on which segment you are looking at. But overall, the growth rate, we are seeing a very significant growth on that particular market.
Thank you, Mr. Benoy.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.